100 years ago, Detroit became the Motor City as Henry Ford's first ideas began to take physical form. Action followed those ideas, and Detroit grew in sync with its revolutionary product. The designs have changed, but it's still skilled hands crafting a superior automobile. The ultimate proving ground is the racetrack, and Detroit's celebration of the ultimate automobile is seen today in the IndyCar. Speed, power, skill, the best battle on Belle Isle. Rahal, Sullivan, Tracy, and Gordon are on the winners list. Who is the next king of the Motor City? From Detroit, it's the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix on Belle Isle Park. Hi and welcome. It's a rainy afternoon here in Detroit, and it will make for a great race because rain is the equalizer. Here's Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, rain is not only the equalizer, it could be the terrorizer for the top 5 qualifiers. In 80-degree weather yesterday, Scott Pruitt led a brigade of Firestone-clad tired cars to the front 5 positions. But here's the problem with Firestone. They have only had 25 laps of testing with their rain tire. Now what they did is they changed the grooving on their rain tires. As you look at the two tires comparing to Goodyear's rain tire that has over 20 years of development work, well, look at what happened. The slower cars in the Goodyear rain tires became quicker today in practice. So what did Firestone do? They went with a tire grooving iron. Grooving irons they had to borrow from a competitor, Michelin tires, and they grooved up some tires and they changed them like this. See these grooves right here? They've added them to the inside of the wheels, of each wheel. The idea being that this will route the water out further, make it a little bit closer to the Goodyear design. Let's check in with Paul. Paul?
All right, so Danny Sullivan and I, being maybe a little brighter than Jack, have decided to hide in the booth for the start of this race. So the rain, for the most part, has stopped here at the moment. The track is still very wet. Grooving the Firestone tires, the rain, all of this, how's this going to affect the day?
Well, I think we're going to see a complete change. The Goodyears were clearly quicker this morning in the warm-up. I think those guys are going to move to the front, but they've got to get by these guys that are at the front in Firestone tires. The spray is going to be a big problem. You're going to see all the mist, everything, and then you have gray walls, and they've got to run between them. It's going to be tricky to pass, but I think we are going to see more passing in the wet than we would have seen in the dry.
We're looking at the backstretch section there. Well, now we're looking over on the front. In that yellow Mercedes, that is Wally Dallenbach. He's the chief steward of the series, making a final inspection of the course. And the real problem is standing water. You can't have a puddle even if you have rain tires.
Well, you don't want big standing water. You have a little puddle here or there, it's not going to be a problem. But what they're looking for is big standing water, particularly at apexes, because the cars are so light. They hit that with a big flat tire, even though it's grooved, and it'll just aquaplane. It'll just float right across that, and the driver can tend to lose control. It's not that they're looking for a dry track. They just don't want big puddles.
One of the interesting changes that they have just announced and are notifying the teams of at this moment is that they are going to start this race in qualifying order single file. So it will not be rows of 2 as they come to the start. Jerry Punch.
Well, indeed, Paul, and that could present somewhat of a problem, but then again, some of the guys in the middle of the pack have so much experience, they know they're going to have to be patient today. In fact, I'm back in row 5, which will turn into single file 5 with Michael Andretti, the man who's had the hot hand in PPG IndyCar competition, 2 wins in the last 3 outings, thought he would have a better qualifying effort, had a problem with the caution late in the qualifying session. He will start 9th today. Across from him, the young man who won this race a year ago, Robbie Gordon's Valvoline car, starting a backup right now. Put his primary car in the tire barrier yesterday. We'll start the backup in 10th spot. And behind them in row 6, 2 drivers who are looking for their first win. Remarkably, the Team Penske guys have not gone to victory lane. They have led 313 laps thus far in 1996. Paul Tracy starts on the inside, Al Unser Jr. on the outside. Together, they have 41 IndyCar victories. Tracy won here. That's Paul Tracy right there back in 1994. He's looking for a good run, but Al Unser Jr. came so close last week at Milwaukee, and certainly Penske pride is on the line here at Detroit today. These 2 guys will start from row 6. Let's go back to Jack.
Well, Jerry, one of the things, if you take a look at the great equalizer in rain, you've got to look to some of the Formula One veterans that now call IndyCar their home as possibly having a little bit more experience in the wet. Add to that the fact that there are a lot of Formula One drivers, owners, mechanics that have come here to Belle Isle today on their off weekend as they prepare for the Grand Prix in Canada next week. Now, some of them came up to Mark Blundell and gave him this flag, wishing him well. And one of the interesting things, guys in the booth, is Blundell was very quick in the wet.
All right, not sure who Billy is. But
I'm not either, but
well, they're cheering somebody on. Must be a nickname. Let's look at what we might want to keep track of today. The weather woes, obviously. We've talked about that. The wet treads, that's the tires. How are they going to perform, and how many changes will take place because of the rain? Bumps and grinds, that's the track. The track is rough, bunch of surface changes. And moving on up, well, Jerry Punch just introduced you to those rows that are sitting back that are actually on what is theoretically a better tire, and also that had faster speeds in the morning practice. And get the point. That's just get any championship point you can, because the battle is becoming tight and it's critical. So those are the stories we will be qualifying, or we'll be keeping track of here today as we take a look at Christian Fittipaldi, who is very, very good in the wet. We'll be right back at Belle Isle. Here we go. We take a look at the starting grid here. On the front row, Scott Pruitt, his first IndyCar pole, comes in his 82nd career start. Alongside Andre Ribeiro, his Rio 400 winner, makes the first front row start for this season. In row 2, Adrian Fernandez, the 1992 Detroit Indy Lights winner, and Parker Johnstone, his best career finish, a second, came on the street circuit at Long Beach. In the third row, Alex Zanardi. This is his 5th top 5 start of the season. And Christian Fittipaldi, who has finished in the points in 6 of the 7 races. In row 4, Jill DeFerrin, who dominated on the streets of Long Beach before engine problems struck. And Bobby Rahal, the winner of the first event held here on Belle Isle. In row 5, it's Michael Andretti, who has won 2 of the last 3 races, including Milwaukee last week. And Robbie Gordon, his most recent win came here 1 year ago. In row 6, Paul Tracy and Al Unser Jr. In row 7, Roberto Moreno and the rookie Greg Moore. In row 8, Mark Blundell and Brian Herta. The 9th row, Emerson Fittipaldi and Raul Boesel. In row 10, Mauricio Gugelmin and Jimmy Vasser. The 11th row, Jeff Krosnoff and Stefan Johansson. In row 12, Eddie Lawson and Juan Fangio. The 13th row, P.J. Jones and Hiro Matsushita. Withdrawing from the event with the rain today was Michel Jourdain. So that's the way they line up. And we are ready now to take a tour of this track, as the engines have already fired and the crews, I'll give them a little extra warming time. Danny, an interesting circuit. We'll be doing 77 laps around this 2.1 mile, 14 turn course.
Well, of course, you see the passing zones there in the green. These are just the places you can get by. They're not all great, but they're places that you can get by. Some of the slower mark. The troubled spots are at a lot of those passing zones as well, because they'll suck you in there a little bit. It'll be a good spot to get by, and then the guy shuts the door. This is turn 1. They're just on the pit lane coming out. Then they go through that left-hander turn 2. They go down this little short straightaway. Now they're going into turn 3 there. They bend around to the left underneath the trees. Of course, with this cloud, you can't really see them. Going through a tight right-hander right there, then a very tight left-hander, short squirt on the throttle, tight right-hander, accelerate up to the top of your screen there. This is an important corner. It's onto the straightaway. Also a good passing spot coming onto the straight. You'll go down there. Now the straight's not really a straightaway in the true sense, because you got to bend there to the right. See, it keeps bending around to the right. And then you actually carry your speed through that left-hander that you see at the top of your screen. Under the trees, hard on the brakes, fast right-hander there. Short acceleration up to that left-hander on the right of your screen. Through this tricky section that's all concrete in there now. Middle of it's asphalt. Now tight left, then this tight right-hander onto a short straightaway. Good place to try to pass, but difficult. quite a quick right-hander right there, and another right-hander onto the front straightaway. All those corners you see are in concrete now. They are revved. Then down this straightaway through that very fast bend, and the start-finish line right underneath the bridge there. See the checkered across the pit.
And of course the pitch just to your right on the inside. Well, they're on the track. We will come back, and when we do, it'll be the green flag on what should be a fascinating day. In Detroit, there's your pole sitter, Scott Pruitt, as he follows the contingent of safety cars around the track. So let's go to the pits and Jack Arute.
And you see Jim McGee talking to Scott Pruitt.
I guess it's the button on your left side, silver button, please.
And that silver button he's talking about is the rain light that you will see positioned behind the gearbox below the wing on every single car. Jim McGee, very quickly, with the rain, what does that do to pit tactics? Can you make it on one stop?
Well, you know, we're going to know how quick it dries out. If it doesn't dry out and it stays pretty wet, I think we could do it possibly on one stop.
Changes things all around this morning. The pole sitter's car, they softened the car up, but they are still very, very concerned. Jerry?
Well, they're very excited up here in Christian Fittipaldi's pits. Christian, the fastest driver this morning in practice. He's the first driver on Goodyear tires starting outside of row 6. I talked to John Simmons a moment ago, the chief mechanic, and John says, we told Christian, don't get too excited. We know your car was very quick this morning. We know there's only Firestone cars in front of you, but don't try to overdo it early. Get a nice patient start, and then when you get a chance, pick them off one by one. Paul?
Yeah, Paul Newman standing there as well, looking a little dejected about this thing, wondering what they're going to find in the rain. I think they've got a very good chance of finding a victory, but we may see a historic start here too.
We are going to see a historic start because they're actually going to start in single file. And of course, in my years in IndyCar racing, I never saw that even under wet conditions, but we also heard from Wally Dallenbach, the chief steward, who said he's never started one in single file, and this is a safety issue. You see the track's quite narrow there, gray walls. These guys want to get a good, safe start.
There's the race analysis. We already talked about the circuit itself. 77 laps, 161.7 miles, and you have heard they are talking about doing that on a single stop given the conditions today. Paul Tracy has the race record from '94 at 86.245 miles an hour. So now just a single pace car in front of the field. The parade laps are complete, and Scott Pruitt will be able to bring them to the green flag. What do you think, Danny? Would you drive offline for the first couple of laps?
Well, if I was Scott Pruitt, and they've of course done the practice session this morning, he's got a pretty good idea of where he's going to go. But I think he'll probably stay pretty much online. He'll figure out what's best. He's also, don't forget, if he's a little slow to get started when they're behind the pace car like this right now, they haven't got as much temperature in the tires as they like. He's going to have to feel that out, and he's want to kind of keep the people behind him.
Let's go to Jerry Punch.
Guys, Christian Fittipaldi radioed in just a moment ago. He has lost telemetry on his digital dash readout. He has no idea what gear he is in and what kind of fuel usage he has. Very concerning here at a road course. And Danny, that's got to make a driver very anxious, particularly when you got to worry about gear changes and rev limiters on a very tight course like Belle Isle.
Well, it does, but of course I think he's going to be so busy with this race that telemetry, once he gets into it a couple of laps, is probably not going to be a problem. He's going to have to feel the gears. He's going to have to just know where he is.
And that's going to be really the key, is because in the sequential gearbox, as we look at Pat Patrick, the owner of the pole-sitting car, the dash will tell you what gear you're in. You can't just look down and decide.
That's right, and if you get it too low, of course, you could lock up the rear wheels and spin the car around.
All right, so there's one of the onboard cameras, and that gives you a very good picture of how damp it is out there on Michael Andretti's car. And this is the final two corners before turning onto the straight that leads past the pit area and toward the start-finish line. Not really a straight, it is a bend. The pace car is off the course. They're in the control of Scott Pruitt right now. Here he comes off that final corner, leading to the green, and here we go. Single file, they start. A battle back as Christian Fittipaldi makes a move, comes by the inside. DeFerrin looks like he touches Donardi as he comes around. But Christian Fittipaldi makes the move on the start. Everybody through the first turn nice and clean. And they're still coming through the first turn. So Ribeiro is chasing Scott Pruitt. In race order, qualifying order at the moment, they're the same except for the move by Christian Fittipaldi, who darted to the inside and was able to move up around both Zanardi and Johnstone.
course, right now, they're just trying to feel their way around, get out there good and smooth, get some heat in those tires. Gil de Ferran in the yellow car going right past Fernandez there.
Comes to the inside and chases now Christian Fittipaldi, two ex-Formula One drivers. Fernandez has fallen steadily backwards from his third starting position.
And of course, you saw that spray there too, Paul. That's one of the reasons why they want to move to the front as quickly as possible.
Tracy around both Johnstone and Fernandez as Tracy comes forward. And Robbie Gordon with Michael Andretti now as they attack Johnstone. Boy, look at that. Visibility's a little better here than I expected, though.
Well, you're going a very slow spot there. Look at Robbie Gordon going by.
Robbie Gordon jumps down the inside alongside Parker Johnstone. Michael Andretti goes with him. I told you the rain can be fascinating.
From a driver's point of view in a slow corner, that's what you get. But as they move in there, you're going to get the spray. The spray is the real problem. That's your real enemy.
Robbie Gordon makes his move and moves into fourth place. So it's Pruitt. Christian Fittipaldi moves around Ribeiro and picks up second. De Ferran sits down in fourth place. And Paul Tracy has now moved into fifth. So a lot of changes up at the front, but not unexpected. The Goodyear tires are working.
That's right, and everybody's being cautious here. They're trying to move to the front as quickly as possible, but the Goodyears we saw in the warm-up, the first 14 cars were fastest on Goodyears.
And here you see why Scott Pruitt has the advantage on Firestone tires as the pole sitter. Clear shot.
Yeah, he's got nobody in front of him. He can pick his line. Doesn't have to worry anybody just yet. If they get in front of him, that might be a different deal. There's Christian Fittipaldi right behind.
IndyCar race control as we watch Paul Tracy make his move. Look at the tip of the nose of his car. It's no longer there. That's a little cone-like that actually comes off on the Penske, and IndyCar race control is reporting its lane over in turn 5 somewhere. Christian Fittipaldi makes a move for the lead, and he's got it. Christian Fittipaldi is out in front around Pruitt.
Now we might see a different deal. Don't forget, when they're behind a fast car in there, it's like going down the freeway and turning your windshield wipers off. They don't have any kind of windshield wipers, anything on here to protect them.
So Scott Pruitt now has to battle with the spray off the back of Christian Fittipaldi's car. You also see the running lights, emphasis running. They are not brake lights, but they are simply to help locate the car in that spray. That's what Jim McGee was trying to get Scott to make sure he had on. He did have it on.
Well, that's a very bright light, and that's the driver behind. That's his only mark to know where the other guy is so that he doesn't run up his backside.
So Andre Ribeiro, there he is. He's dropped well back in the field too to 6th place from his second starting position as he struggles with tires that are not working for him either. But Firestone made a valiant effort here this morning as soon as they realized this was in the rain and that they had a tire that only had 25 testing laps as a rain tire, and they started grooving those tires, getting them ready for the run. It might have been too little too late because the Goodyear cars are definitely coming through the front. Go back to the second place car now, Scott Pruitt. And look how far he falls behind. We may get a glimpse of the leader ahead. Oh, he's way up there. There's the leader, just came through the screen. Now de Ferran charges on Scott Pruitt, and Gil de Ferran takes over second place.
Boy, those Goodyear shot cars, they've just got so much more traction out of the corners. You just see him pull up alongside of him, stand on the gas and go. Looks like Paul Tracy on the inside there. He just shot through there.
Boy, he did. He just came flying around Jackaroo. And there goes Robbie Gordon. Jack?
Let's update you very quickly on your leader, Christian Fittipaldi. You heard the fact that he had some problems with telemetry. Well, some of them have been solved. The most critical one for the team, the readout from the car back to the pits in terms of fuel consumption. The team is now getting that readout, and they breathed a major sigh of relief, guys.
Well, Christian Fittipaldi has the lead, the first time he's led in the Indy cars since last year at Nazareth. There's Robbie Gordon now moving on Paul Tracy as the Goodyear shot cars continue to try to come through the front of the field. Remember, though, once they all get there, then we have a race between guys who all have really excellent traction, both under acceleration and braking. So at the front of the field, it's Christian, followed by Jill DeFerrin and Paul Tracy. We'll be back after these messages and a word from your ABC station. The magnificent fountain in the center of Belle Isle, the center of the circuit. Coming up next on ABC Sports, we'll kick off our coverage of the U.S. Cup 96. From Foxborough Stadium, the U.S. national soccer team squares off against Ireland. That's next, right here on ABC Sports. Robbie Gordon, little off-course excursion. He got into the tire barrier. You can see he's already out of the car, so apparently he's decided it's a futile effort to try to get back in it. Here's what happened, Danny.
Well, he comes down the back straightaway, he goes through that fast bend, he brakes, he just locks up. He can't turn. He just can't go anywhere. He can't turn. Hits those tire barriers. They do exactly what they wanted. You know, that's Robbie's 5th time in 8 races that he's failed to finish, and 3 of them are by contact with something. He just can't stop. And he can't turn the car because it's too slippery. He's just going straight in. That's really unfortunate because he was moving up and he obviously was very confident.
Yeah, and the year has not been kind to Robbie Gordon, that's for sure. As a result, full course yellow. And here are the rule changes this year regarding road circuits. Remember, they changed a week ago at Milwaukee on the ovals. The cars on the lead lap will line up according to race position at the front of this single file line. It'll stay single file. All other cars will then line up behind the lead lap cars. So if you're a lap off, in track position. And of course, the restart itself will be single file. Jerry Punch?
Well, I'm standing with Derek Walker, who owns the Robbie Gordon car. And Derek, any indication from Robbie what may have happened out there?
I think he just locked up the brakes. It's a real slick, obviously, and just didn't make the turn, so short day.
Not been a good weekend for you. One car yesterday in the tire barrier and the backup car early in these laps.
Yeah, it's been a tough weekend for a lot of people. There have been a lot of cars going off the track, and as you say, we had a little bit yesterday, but you know, today we really thought we had a good shot. With the wet conditions, the Goodyear tire is superior here, so we were looking for a great day, but short one.
Well, Robbie Gordon's aggressiveness didn't pay off here in the early laps. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Jerry, there's always a race within a race, especially at the halfway mark in the World Series, PPG IndyCar World Series Championship. Here is what Jimmy Vasser said to his crew for Target Team Ganassi. He said, guys, hopefully we'll at least get a couple of points for the championship. Here's what Roger Penske keeps telling Al Jr. Simply where Vasser is running. Now why? Well, how about the fact that Al Jr. is trailing Vasser in the point standings. One further update, it has stopped raining. Your leader, Christian Fittipaldi, just radioed into the Newman Haas team that in 15 laps he thinks the track will be dry enough to go back to the slicks. Paul?
Boy, in fact, when you take a look at the track surface, it looks like it's drying. Well, there are the points that Jack was talking about with Al Unser Jr. certainly within reach of Jimmy Vasser now, and why the focus for Team Penske is on Jimmy Vasser. There's the second half of the top 12 in the points. So the circuit is under a full course caution. It is in fact beginning to dry. When we look from our position right outside the broadcast booth here, it looks like that track could in fact dry fairly quickly. So Christian may be right. He of course has a much better view of the entire thing, and the good news is the passage of the cars over the pavement will help dry the track. Caution flags still fly all around the circuit at Belle Isle. The next stop for the PPG IndyCar World Series 2 weeks away. A brand new circuit for ABC Sports, but one that they've seen the IndyCars on any number of times, and it creates some great racing. It's the Budweiser 200 from Portland, Oregon. That's on June 23rd. So there you see the flags flying, telling you that they are still in a full course caution as they get the tire barrier set back in place, Jerry Punch.
Well, indeed, as they work on that tire barrier, I may mention that Paul Tracy's made quite a move early on from 11th to 3rd spot, but it cost him a part of his car. Let me show you. It cost him this carbon fiber nose piece on the front wing. Now, it's only glued in position right here, so when you do bump a car, you don't have a bumper on the front of these Indy cars. This will go away. Why won't they come in and change it on their pit stop? Well, because this carbon fiber piece is totally integral with the whole front wing. So in order to change this piece, you have to add a whole front wing. So it may not be pretty, but it runs well and has no real effect on the aerodynamics of the car here at these speeds on a road course. It will not be changed. He will race all day minus the nose piece. Paul?
Yeah, and it doesn't look like it's going to make any aerodynamic difference at all.
No, and around this track, that's not as critical as someplace, let's say, where they were in Michigan, where it's high speed. See the track drying there? See how it's a little darker gray right there. That line will dry.
There are going to be some interesting decisions will have to be made very shortly here about whether or not you want to move over to your dry tires. They've been told 1 lap to go.
You saw those guys driving offline there, going down in the wet. You might say, why are they doing that? They're trying to cool their wet tires.
Jimmy Vasser comes into the pits. This is your points leader.
He's making a stop to take on fuel because he was second to last at the back of the pack. And what they're doing is it's a strategy move. He'll just go to the back. Hopefully, maybe he'll get a yellow. Something will happen. This is for later on during the race.
Jeff Krosnoff did the same thing just a few seconds ago. Let's go to Jack.
Let's give you some tactics from Newman Haas. Your leader, Christian Fittipaldi, believe it or not, guys, they're concerned about the track drying up. They feel, as we've seen, that they're far more competitive if they have to run in the wet. Meanwhile, his teammate Michael Andretti is having a slight visibility problem. The radio communication during this caution back and forth between the crew, trying to tell Michael how to defog the windscreen on the front of his helmet. But what they said, if all else fails on the pit stop, they'll hand him a good old-fashioned rag and say, Michael, just wipe it clean.
Now, you saw Michael reach down. Gilles de Ferran just did it as well and wipe the back of his driving glove across the visor. Looks like his visibility there is fairly good.
It's not too bad, but when he starts running, and if he's having some fogging as well, there's moisture in there, he'll have it cracked open to try to get the air to clear it. One thing you don't want on one of these in wet conditions is a fogged up visor. It's so irritating.
Now we're going to open up the channel to Michael's radio, and we'll just keep it open and monitor that as they get ready to come back to the green flag. Assumption is he isn't going to be chattering here for a moment, but we'll keep it open just in case. The teams try not to communicate with you at this time because they don't want to interrupt any planning that you may be doing as you come toward the green. Now remember, with this new rule on the road courses, they are in race order as they come back to the green flag single file with the lap cars sitting back behind those on the lead.
Green.
As they tell Michael Andretti, green flag, let's go. All running together. 4 Goodyears followed by 4 Firestones. Tires very definitely the story here today.
Michael in that black car there seems to be trying to find a way around Paul Tracy in the bright red and white one right in your screen.
Michael Andretti pokes a nose to the right of Paul Tracy.
I think he's just trying to let him know he's there and he's looking for a spot, but he wants to be sure when he makes that pass. There's a lot of racing left to go, and you don't want to do something and then go get your nose knocked off and have to make a long pit stop.
So humid here that even at the relatively low speeds, you're getting a contrail off the rear wing, and that tells you a little bit of something about how effective the rear wing is here and how much downforce. If you can see a contrail develop at these speeds, that's impressive. A lot of energy there on the rim on the wing. Michael Andretti working on Paul Tracy as they run along the Canadian straightaway here. That's Canada just across the river. Now that final right-hand turn brings them back toward the pit straight.
Of course, they're second, third, and fourth, and Christian Fittipaldi's pulled out a little bit just there at the bottom of your screen. He's pulled out just a little bit. He's running well. One thing interesting is the Firestones, as the track dries, some of the Firestone runners feel that their tires are better in sort of an intermediate condition. So we could see some of those Firestone runners who have been as much as 5 seconds off the pace of the Goodyears moving back up as these conditions change.
Yeah, Jack Arute was showing us earlier with the combination of the 2 tires that the tread depth on the Firestone is not nearly as deep, is it, Jack?
Well, Danny and Paul, that's precisely what Scott Pruitt is radioing into his crew. He's saying that now that the track's beginning to dry, he's getting a little bit more grip, and the newly grooved Firestone rain tires are beginning to perform a little bit better. But he's still crying and hoping that the sun comes out. He wants it to go dry. That's when he thinks he's got the ace in the hole.
And one of the things that's interesting is that grooving took place at Firestone by the advice of Kenny Szymanski, who works for the Tasman Group, who's probably one of the most experienced tire guys around and came out of Formula One. And he was helping him show which way to groove it and how to improve it.
All right, first guy out of the race is Robbie Gordon, right, Jerry Punch?
And right, Paul, we caught up with Robbie. Robbie, we were speculating that the car looked like it locked up and just started to skitter and wheel hop. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I guess I had too much front bias, and I got on the brakes. I didn't get on the brakes very hard. I locked up the front, the right front, and I tried backing off it to unlock it, and I locked up both fronts then, and I couldn't do anything with that.
How about track conditions? It looked like it's starting to dry in a hurry.
You know, it's definitely getting dry. I was asking Derek, you know, before the start of the race if it was drying up. He says it's not sprinkling anymore. It looks like it could be, because there was looking like there's a pretty dry groove out there. Not dry enough for slicks yet, but maybe about another 20 laps.
Robbie Gordon out early here today. Paul?
Watching as Al Unser Jr. working on Adrian Fernandez, and I think you may be right in that the tires may now be equalizing just a little bit in terms of performance as the track comes dry, and the Firestone's really working more the intermediate area. But behind Fernandez is both Al Unser Jr. and Ray Hall, and it's a battle for 7th place.
Of course, we're on board right there with Bobby Rahal, and he was very quick this morning. He liked his car. See him go out wide, boy, trying to get some grip and get a run off of that corner so he could maybe make an attempt to pass, but it looked like he lost some ground there.
Battling back at 12th place is Greg Moore and Alex Zanardi. Zanardi's in 12th right now, but Race Control reported just a moment ago that the two of them have touched, and so they're keeping an eye on both of those cars as well as we continue to watch Al Unser Jr. and Bobby Rahal work on Fernandez. Christian Fittipaldi is the leader, followed by DeFerrin and Tracy.
And of course, at this stage, Paul, everybody's trying to feel it out, and as the conditions change, you're trying to find out what works with your car. Where can you go? Do you stay in that groove? Does it work a little bit better off? You want to stay as much as possible in that drier line because you got more grip, but they're trying to figure out what their car is going to do on those wet tires.
At what point do you begin to worry about the wear on the rain tires, Danny?
Well, you really worry when your times start dropping off. They'll peak at some time where you can run fast in drier conditions, but then when they start going away, you'll feel that the car will slide more, and you'll start losing ground to the car in front or behind you.
And once that start, how long do you have?
Well, they can run a long way. It's not a safety issue so much with the tire, especially on a course like this. It's not high speed, so it won't be a safety factor. It's just a matter of speed. If you're losing ground to somebody else, it's time to stop for slicks. If you're gaining on them, you're going to stay on those tires.
Well, this battle tightens up even more as Al Unser Jr. goes way over to the left to try to take a run on Adrian Fernandez, and Parker Johnstone has joined this fight, as has Mark Blundell, so they are all closing down now on Fernandez. At the front of the field, it remains Christian Fittipaldi, then DeFerrin, Paul Tracy, Michael Andretti, and our pole sitter, Scott Pruitt, followed by Ribeiro. We'll be right back. Leader Christian Fittipaldi at the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix on Belle Isle. He, of course, is the leader and a relative of the guy who is running well back in the field, Emerson Fittipaldi. We really expected more out of Emerson today, but he is sitting back in 17th place. Now, here's the relationship. There's the leader, and we look for 2nd place DeFerrin.
And you see what he did there? He went over all the way to your left side of your screen there, trying to go through the damp spots to cool those tires, to keep them at the optimum operating temperature when you're driving on that dry line. One other thing that we've seen, it's not dry all the way around the track yet.
Derek Arute, what's happening in the pits?
Well, how'd you like to be faced with this decision, guys? Newman Haas, your leader, Christian Fittipaldi, they would like to stretch this stop to as far as 35 laps. Why? They want it to be dry, because you can see crewmen right now exchanging the rain tires and preparing the slicks. They feel that if they can stretch the fuel mileage, they're going to be able to put the slicks over. And Danny Sullivan, that's very important, especially when you're trying to determine how many stops you're going to have to make.
That's right, Jack, because what you don't want to do is if you stop too early, you're going to turn this into a 3-stop. And that's a lot of time in the pits. So what they want to do is stretch that thing out. And as we see right there, the track's not completely dry all the way around. We see Al Jr. and Michael getting sideways right there. It's still very wet in some spots.
That was the Paul Tracy that we know and love.
Yeah, sorry, I said Al Jr. and Paul Tracy.
He kicked the back end. Look at that, all the way back to Pruitt. That is the separation that the front four have on the rest of the field. Now here comes the rest of that fight with Little Al still looking for an opportunity to get around Ribeiro. Is he going offline occasionally to keep the tires cool too?
Yes, he wants to dampen them up a little bit because if you run on that dry line all the time, the wets will go away. If you can cool them just a little bit, you can do that. Of course, he's gotten by. See, it's still wet right there. You see the dampness there? As long as those wet tires remain shiny, they're in good state. When they start going off color and get dull gray, then they're wearing them out.
Al Unser Jr. going to try to make a move alongside Ribeiro as they run on that straight over on the south side of the course. And in fact, Al Unser Jr. finally gets around Ribeiro, and he'll set his sights on Scott Pruitt just ahead. But then he's got a considerable distance to make up.
Of course, two things happened there. He passed him offline, which helped cool his tires a little bit, and plus he took the spot. Oh, there goes Mark
Blundell
Blundell
past Johnstone.
Good move. Tough spot to pass there, but good move.
So with that, Blundell moves into the top 10, and Greg Moore pulls up behind Johnstone. Moore, if he was involved in contact earlier with Zampedri, it doesn't seem to affect his run. But an interesting young driver here who in his Indy Lights career and his IndyCar career hasn't had a chance to drive in the rain.
No, he's got very little experience in the wet, and he's showing very well. And also interesting, I believe he's running on Firestone tires, which is nice to see a Firestone runner actually moving up there.
The view down on Belle Isle in the middle of the Detroit River. We don't like the cloud part, though.
No, and that means there's still a lot of moisture out there.
The crowd here has, for the most part, stayed with us here today. They came out to see a race, and of course you can't beat race fans for hanging in there. And I think they're going to very definitely be rewarded here today as we look down from the Honda Helicam and continue to watch Greg Moore working on Parker Johnstone. Mark Blundell is just ahead. There he is. And this is back in the order down about 10th position, or exactly at 10th position. Now coming up to second place as Paul Tracy and Michael Andretti are working on Gil de Ferran. Let's go to the pits and Jack.
Well, let's give you a little primer on why these guys on rain tires have got to find the wet. You've got approximately 5/30 seconds of tread, both on a slick and on a rain tire. But on a slick, it's spread out across the entire tire. But on a rain tire, you see, they're small little patches. So here's what happens when you've got those little patches on the ground. If it's dry, well, it literally will create a lot of heat, and that heat will be retained inside the tire. When the track is dry, however, you can distribute that heat across what's called a solid footprint. That's also why you have treads on your passenger tires. Not so that you can get better traction, only for it to work in the rain.
Yeah, you've got to have some channels for that water to squirt out of, otherwise you'll be riding on top of it. Continuing to watch the battle for second place now. It's a three-way fight, de Ferran, Tracy, and Michael Andretti.
And of course, one thing that happens there is that we see there's a dry line around this racetrack, or a drying line. You go put those slicks on, though, and you have to pass a slower car or get by somebody or whatever, and you have to move onto that damp surface. That then creates quite a problem for you when you're on slick tires. So it's real critical when you make that decision to go.
Ever since I saw this a few minutes ago, when you were watching that report with Jack, there was a crew member taking the label off of a rain tire. Now, we've seen him go out on what we call sticker tires. Why would he be taking the label off?
I think that could be a little bit of nerves, and he just wants him to go out with nothing. There's no benefit from taking that sticker off of that tire. It'll quickly go away the minute you put some pressure on it, but he might have just been nervous and looking for something to do.
Boy, Paul Tracy is now, he begins to really try and work on de Ferran. De Ferran has been very effective about staying in this position now, and I think that's probably that offline situation.
You might see
Michael tries to the inside, just takes a look, wants to see what it's like offline.
right. You might see Gil there that he's slower in some section. He might be nursing those tires. He's a very smooth driver, and he might just be nursing them to see how long he can get them. Not take too many chances. They know the pit stop's going to come. They know they're going on to slips.
You got a glimpse of Christian Fittipaldi's wing there for a second. He's 6.3 seconds ahead of this battle, Jackaroo.
Well, I'm going to get your answer for why that crew member was scraping the label off.
Oh, good.
What the concern is, Paul, is a lot of it is nervousness and stress down here, but also they said, look, we're going to be taking these tires out, these slick tires, and it's still going to have some wet patches. Even for the first 100 yards or the first half a lap, we want to make sure we can get as much rubber to the road as possible.
And I'll tell you what, take a look at this, the sophistication of this battle that is second, third, and fourth. 3 different chassis, 3 different engines as they come up behind Hero and look for offline position to get around him. That's going to bottle things up a bit. Well, Hero can become a key factor here now. There he goes offline. Good move. Because I think if he hadn't, Paul Tracy was going to take a shot anywhere he could find to get around to Farron. Jerry Punch?
Well, the die has been cast. Paul, Alex Zanardi, the rookie, the first one to come in, and they will go from the rain tires to the Firestone slicks. So we're not getting anywhere in these rain tires. The track is drying, so why not go ahead and put the slicks on? They will take one turn, a front wing out, make an adjustment to the front of the car. They fuel it, and Zanardi spins the tires and is down and away.
Well, one way to get heat in him is Zanardi started 4th, has fallen back to 23rd spot. So they had little choice but to do this. Going to be an interesting first lap for him, though, isn't it? Just kind of head for that light gray area, wouldn't you say?
He's going to stay in that, and you're not going to be able to get him out of there very much. He's going to nurse it around, trying to get some heat up into those tires as quick as possible.
But if the rest of the track is drying, sooner or later, that will go to his advantage. Now, here's an interesting comparison. Hero moved to the right side. He's still on, of course, the rain tires and might be able to actually get around Zanardi. No, Zanardi now begins to pull away as again on that long stretch. No changes as, wait, we have a change as Greg Moore and Barbero got together. Wow.
This is going to throw all the strategy in the window, because if we have a full course yellow now, everybody's going to probably make a stop.
Well, you would presume that this will bring out a full course yellow. If it went out for Robbie Gordon's incident earlier, here's the way that one's set up.
Greg Moore coming down the inside of the blue car, locks it up, taps Ribeiro.
Got offline. There was no way at all he was going to slow down on that. But the good news is Ribeiro looks like he's fine. The tap shouldn't have done anything. And he's not all that deep in either. Greg Moore isn't. So maybe both those cars will come back into the fight. You're listening to Michael Andretti.
Which tires?
One thing interesting, too, right now, Zanardi, who changed tires on the slicks, is about 4 or 5 seconds difference.
Pit, full yellow.
So they're calling Michael in as they go to a full course yellow, and the strategy plays again. I'll tell you what, this race is becoming even better than I expected with all of this going on. Al Unser Jr. makes his stop. He goes to the slicks. Michael Andretti is due in. So is Christian Fittipaldi, the leader. Scott Pruitt is also in. Bobby Rahal is in.
I'm coming in.
There's Michael. Now we're going to...
Dry tires.
We'll listen to Michael as he goes all the way into his stop and see if there's any other information that goes back and forth on that stop. Moreno is out. Moselle is out. Pruitt is away. Fangio comes in. So does P.J. Jones. Jack Arute.
We'll keep listening to Michael Andretti as we watch Christian Fittipaldi's pit stop. Now remember, he cleaned off his visor. Slick tires for both Newman Haas teammates. A change in the wing. Let's check in with Jerry Punch. Jerry?
Gilles de Ferran comes in for a change of 4 tires. They give him a cloth to wipe his windscreen. He's complaining that he could not see the slicks that are going on de Ferran's Pennzoil car. Alex Herring puts the left front, makes a wing change. Let's go back to Jack Arute.
Well, now the concern, Jerry Punch, will be, was this sufficient time for Newman Haas to be able to make this a 2-stop race? Scott Pruitt also in.
As de Ferran loses it on those slicks, and doesn't touch anything. Michael gets around. So does Gugelmin.
That's the big concern down here on pit road. Michael Andretti tried to light the tires up, put some heat in him as he pulled away, and he just had wheel spin and no smoke. It's very wet down here, and this could be the more dangerous place to be at this point in time.
Well, DeFerrin got it restarted. You see that rather narrow, dry path.
That's a very narrow, and of course he came out trying to get some heat in them and just looped them around. Not only were they cold, but probably it got a little bit in the water. Whoa, he just spun it around. He was lucky there. And Michael, that's him on the black car on the inside. Very good maneuvering there.
Bright yellow car down there at the bottom of the screen. Michael in the black car right behind him.
Yeah, he just got a little bit on the damp part. Tires were cold, looped it around.
Got a spin in the same place yesterday. Full course caution, of course. And by the way, the reason for the full course caution, as we take one more look at DeFerrin's situation, was the incident involving, that's Jim Hall, the car owner, involving Greg Moore and Andre Ribeiro, and they have both made it back into the pit, so they should be able to continue. This is why the full course caution is out there, and there is more stopped in the pits. Might be longer than we expected. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations. We're back at Belle Isle in Detroit for the Indy cars, riding on a very wet machine belonging to Andre Ribeiro, who was involved in that incident. Here's the way the top 6 line up, with Christian Fittipaldi, who has led much of the race. Michael Andretti has moved up to the front. Paul Tracy's been trying to get around Michael for some time now. DeFerrin, with his spin, dropped back into 4th place, and Al Unser Jr. sits in 5th. Bobby Rahal in 6th place. Those are the cars that are on the lead lap. We have had an interesting day thus far. It is drying on the track. That is changing the strategy and having an interesting effect on how they will gauge their pit stops. Right, Jack Arute?
Yeah, let's update you on Christian Fittipaldi. We've been telling you the question mark remained whether he was going to be able to make this 2-stop race. Even with the telemetry that's only reading back to the crew, they feel they can go the distance. We've moved down to Greg Moore's pit. He was involved in that shunt, took the carbon fiber right off the rear part of the wing. They replaced the wing, but far more substantial damage towards the nose of the car, where they're going to have to change a lot of the front-end suspension parts. This is going to be a long stay on pit road for one of the Rookie of the Year contenders.
Well, when we went through the leaders there, under yellow, full course yellow, there was one change, and that was that Michael Andretti into 2nd place.
That's right. He had obviously had a better stop and got by Paul Tracy in the pits. He was very close, of course, behind him, but obviously that pit work.
Tracking others under this full course yellow, P.J. Jones started 25th and is now in 11th place as we look back from Stefan Johansson's car. Christian Fittipaldi will lead them back to the green as soon as they get them in line with those on the leader lap at the front of the field. Saturday at 1 Eastern and Pacific, the USA women's basketball team travels to the Windy City to take on the women of Russia. Then bowling's kingpins roll to Michigan for the Greater Detroit Open. And on ABC's Wide World of Sports, we'll head to London for the European Women's Gymnastic Championships, plus coverage of the Advil Mini Marathon from New York City. That's all Saturday right here on ABC Sports. Full course caution. They're trying to get that barricade back in position. You know, a race like this has massive requirements of volunteer help. I think that's because you really couldn't pay them enough to do the job they do. The course marshals, the paddock marshals, all of the safety crews that are helping here today and helping make this a safe race. Bobby Rahal pointing ahead there. Yes, he wants Hero out of the way.
I guess so. Maybe he knew that onboard camera was there and on him. He was pointing to maybe to tell Hero, but I think we're going to see that they readjust the order anyway before we go back to green, don't they?
Well, that's exactly what they suggest they do. And they're trying a couple of new rules here with the yellow. There, Bobby gets around, gets in contact with the leaders of the race. He should be the end of the leader lap. And IndyCar's taken a look at some of the rules in the running the race on how they can make it better for the race fan. Drivers don't always feel that it's better, Al Unser Jr. last week felt that he lost the race to Michael Andretti in Milwaukee because of the new rules under the yellow. But on the other hand, he did say, hey, if it's better for the fan, let's go with it.
Well, that's right. And having been a racer before, I've always felt that 9 times out of 10, when you're leading, you're always upset that you get some of that taken away when the yellow comes out. But really, it's mostly in second place. If you added up all the times that it helped you, I think it's a lot less than the times that it hurt you.
Look out there on the right front of Jimmy Vasser's car. He has not pitted, and he is still on the rain tires. Why?
Well, I would imagine because he's so far back. This is just my guess. He's so far back in there, and he hasn't been running strong all weekend, that their strategy is going to be, we're not going to go with speed here. What we're going to do is try to get to the distance and only make one pit stop.
He fell way, way back and comes up to try to get on with the lead lap. He's not going to do it. At least the electronic scoring not showing that at this moment, Jack Arute. Jack?
Well, this is the brain trust right here for Patrick Racing, Pat Patrick and Jim McGee. Gentlemen, you didn't like the rain. We knew it up front. Do you like the sun? Do you like the slicks? What are Pruitt's chances now?
Well, we're so far behind now. I don't know what we're going to do, but now we have the dries on, and the tire, as you know, works extremely well. The car is performing excellently, so we're ready to go racing now. It's our kind of race.
Jim, what about the setup? You softened things up because of the rain. Are you concerned about that at all?
No, we talked about that. We didn't go too far that way, so we're in good shape.
Jack, you know better than to ask a question like that.
All right, now they are not back to green. These are the cars trying to catch up to the pack so that they can line the cars up correctly for the restart. We'll be back with the green right after this. We should be ready to go back to green flag racing very shortly here on Belle Isle in Detroit in the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix. Christian Fittipaldi giving that lead car quite a bit of shake, trying to get those tires as warm as they can before we go back. They do have the order lined up as they suggested they would, still making some adjustments. There you see one of them being made back at the back of the field with Greg Moore, but they're trying to get the entire field in race order. And there's been some interesting moves back down in the order, Danny.
Well, there have, and I've been a little bit confused. Of course, it's harder when you're sitting here in the booth trying to watch what's going on. But we moved some guys around, and we think we've got 16 cars on the lead lap. And I believe that puts Scott Pruitt back up into 7th spot.
All right, we were listening for a moment to Michael Andretti. Thought we were going to catch some transmissions with him. 25 cars still in the fight. There's the running order. And as we get down to the second page, after 27 laps of 77, the scheduled distance, the question is going to be how many of those cars are truly on the lead lap and how many have pulled up so that they can get behind the lead lap. Well, the computer's showing 16 on the lead lap. And that's what you were thinking.
Yeah, and I think it really helped out the people like Fernandez and Pruitt, Emerson, Jimmy Vasser. They all now are back on their slick tires with the bunch with no slower cars in front of them. I think they got back almost an entire lap. They're back where they want to be. See them jockeying into position there with the cars going up. This is when you see them passing right here for everybody at home. They're readjusting to get into their position for the restart.
And there's Moreno sliding into place, Blundell. There's Eddie Lawson, comes out of the World Formula One Grand Prix Bike Championship. Through the Indy Lights to the Indy Cars. This is his rookie year, but he's doing a nice job.
I also think that one thing that really helps when they wave those guys by from behind the pace car and they've got to go all the way around and pick it up. Don't forget they're doing one thing. They're going at speed. They're warming their tires up. And I think you might see those guys a little quicker at the restart because they got more heat in their tires.
And I'm impressed, too, with how much this track is beginning to dry. Not just online where it was drying, but now offline. The problem is we take a look at the facts there on Eddie Lawson is that offline it's dry in some places, but there's still some small puddles in other places. Jack Arute?
Well, Paul, we don't get a chance to ask the drivers in the cockpit what it might be like out there, but we can ask an IndyCar driver that now calls the shots for his son, Michael Andretti. Mario Andretti. Mario, during this time where the transition from the wet to the dry, what does a driver have to do?
Well, nothing. Obviously, it's going to be quite a bit of a change in the balance, and usually the car goes very loose, a lot of oversteer whenever you make that change, and so aerodynamically, you sort of take a guess, and you know, some guys hit it just right, but there's some surprises out there.
Knowing what you know about the way your son's car has been operating in the wet, are you excited about it going back to the dry?
Well, we don't really know because he was quite loose in the wet, and so we decided not to make some aerodynamic changes that normally would have made for the dry, so we'll just wait and see.
Off to Le Mans for you and our counterpart up in the booth, Danny Sullivan. You're looking for that victory.
Yeah, well, we look forward to that.
Mario Andretti, guys.
Well, one thing I'd question there is, of course, we had the weather report, 80% chance of rain. It was raining hard this morning, everything. How many adjustments did these guys make to their cars just for the wet that now they can't go back to for their dry qualifying setup? Because we saw spring changes going on and everything. If they've got those in there. So I agree with Mario. We're going to see some interesting thing happening to the cars. Jack, what do you have for that?
Well, Danny, during that practice, we were way in very heavy precipitation, and you and I both saw it. There was nonstop changing of springs up and down pit road, and you know, we made light of what Pat Patrick said when he said, why would you ask a question like that? But you know, and I know as well, that everybody's got to be concerned, because my information was most teams softened the car up to compensate for the precipitation. Nobody expected it to go back to dry.
They did that, so now the car you go into a corner is really going to roll on you.
Well, you're going to get that. You're going to get a lot more movement, but what really happens is they don't know what really to what to expect. So these first couple of laps, not only are they going to be trying to pass the guy in front of them and protect their position, but they got to figure out what the car is going to do.
All right, as we watch them dart back and forth, we know it's to scrub tires. We know it's to try to get some heat in the tires. Doesn't tell you.
Green this time. Green.
That's the word to Michael Andretti. So they said it for me. I don't have to. Do you learn anything about handling when you dart like that?
No, it doesn't tell you what. And you're darting so close because they're trying to stay in the dry line. It doesn't tell you anything. They're just trying to get heat up for this moment right now.
16 cars on the lead lap after this prolonged yellow, and they have them back in race order once again. Those on the lead lap are in front. Pace car ready to come off. Christian Fittipaldi picks up the pace. Michael begins to accelerate. Can't cross until he gets across that line. Can't make any move to pass. Christian Fittipaldi leads him down into turn one. Paul Tracy closes on Michael. Good start for Christian. He's pulling away from his teammate. Now Michael closes in under braking. Paul Tracy closes on Michael. The battle's at the front. You're watching the top three. There's DeFerrin coming into the fight as well. Behind DeFerrin is Al Unser Jr., Bobby Rahal, and Scott Pruitt.
Tell you, one of the people that I think benefited the most from this new system was Gilles DeFerrin in that bright yellow car, just coming into your screen right there, because he had that spin, and yet he never lost his position, so he got to move back up to fourth. In the old system, he'd have been at the back of the pack.
We'll keep an eye, too, on the Firestone shot cars. Boy, look at him come offline. Tracy gets way off course. Gathers it under him, keeps back. Look how it's damp over on this side.
Just in that one corner. Of course, you see that coming up there. They cleaned off the screen, but that's hard for a driver to do. You're going to see that. A couple of spots, they're under trees. They don't dry as fast, but basically the track's dry.
You're riding with Rahal. He's back in 6th place, as now he works on Al Unser Jr. Comes to the inside of Junior. Oh, this tells us something about the circuit. Now Pruitt's beginning to look at Junior. And Jimmy Vasser has come into the pits.
For him to pull out like that, I'm not so sure Junior didn't miss a gear.
There's Jimmy Vasser coming into the pits. This should be a change onto the dry tires, something they hesitated in doing and maybe got caught out with this green flag.
I think their strategy is more to get within that window so that they can go on one stop from here till the end of the race.
Well, they make the stop on the 32nd lap. 77 laps the scheduled distance. This might be able to do it. Again, watching the cars of Terry Firestone. Scott Pruitt, you saw him there in that red, white, and blue car. He's one of them. Right behind him is Fernandez. He's another. And Rahal, of course, is on the Goodyears.
Getting a little sideways coming out of that corner where it was still a little damp.
Well, there's still quite a bit of water out there.
You don't want to get offline. I think that's what we saw with Paul Tracy just a minute ago, where he slid out there wide. He probably just got on the damp, took a little grip away, and he slid out wide.
It's Al Unser Jr. charging on this man, Bobby Rahal, and Rahal closing down on 4th place to Farron. We continue to watch this battle. Jerry Punch, what about that pit stop by Vassar? Did that get them to where they can run the end of the run?
Paul, they're going to be very, very close. I spoke with Tom Anderson. He said if we get a couple of caution flags, a couple of caution laps, I should say, we should be make it. Otherwise, we're going to have to roll the dice. But remember, he pitted on lap 8, so he had to stay out to get back on the lead lap under that full course yellow when everyone else pitted. And then when he got to pass the pace car, the rules dictate that he could not come down pit road until they went back to green. So the green flag waved. He came down and pitted, and now will hold his breath and see if he can make it the full 77 laps without another stop.
My only question to that would be, why wouldn't you go, if you're that far behind and you're still on wet, why wouldn't you go until you're in the window so there's never a chance of that, where you can do it on that just one more stop?
Well, here's a guy that's having a terrific day. There is the Eagle, and it's P.J. Jones as he's up in 11th place. We suggested at the start, I think Danny mentioned it as well, that engines don't make quite as bit of difference in the rain. But the power tends to equalize, and PJ's taking advantage of that.
And of course, that's that new development motor from Toyota. And but around here, I mean, horsepower is always important. But if you've got a good handling car, you'll be able to hold those guys off a little bit. And he's having a great run.
Driving for Dan Gurney, started 25th, now runs 11th. That's Johansson just behind him. There's Stefan's progress up through the field as he's moved up from 22nd.
That little puff of smoke you saw come up was off of BJ's car, which was obviously a brake locking, which means he's trying hard. He wants to keep those guys behind him.
Stefan driving for Tony Bentonhausen, now working all over PJ. This is a nice run for the rookie that drove his first IndyCar race just 1 week ago on the Milwaukee Mile. And for whatever reason, once you move up there, you certainly can hang on to that position. Up to 4th place to Farron and Rahal.
Paul, this is a track that puts a premium on handling. If you can handle well and your car is braking well and you can get around those corners, then it's really tough on the other guy, even if he's got a lot more horsepower. And I seem to remember in '93 doing that with Al Jr., where I lost my turbo for the last 30 laps. And it can work. There's very few places to pass. If your car's handling good, you can do it.
Bobby Rahal sits there working on to Farron. Battle for 4th place. Farron, that bright yellow car. The Miller car of Rahal right behind. See that marking clearly on the rear wing. On board once again with Bobby Rahal. Report from the observers out on the race circuit. Jeff Krosnoff, Toyota Power, running rough. Emerson Fittipaldi brushed the wall, and everybody's coming around Emerson. Emerson was up to 9th before this brush. Oh, that's too bad. Used to refer to him as the Rainmeister. Had a great run at Elkhart in the rain one year. Terrific run. Whatever it's done, though, this time with that brush for the wall, looks like it may be terminal.
You can see that as you look at it right now, to be the left rear tire. See how it's all cambered in? And the piece underneath the car, he's broken a suspension piece. I'd say his day's probably done.
So Emerson Fittipaldi, there it is.
There he is. He just got out. See, he got out of that little groove there, and he got in the damp, and it just slid him right up into the wall. It's the right rear tire as we look at it now. It was the left as you were looking at it from before.
So there is Fittipaldi, and it looks like that's done for the day, wouldn't you say, Jerry?
Yeah, I've got to believe, Paul, the suspension piece just sheared off where it had been bolted onto the back part of the upright on the right rear tire. The right rear tire, of course, going flat, but the suspension broke, and that's what allowed the upright and the tire and wheel down on the track as they are unbuckling Emerson Fittipaldi, and indeed, he will call it a day here at Belle Isle.
Yeah, you saw his crew chief, Rick Reineman, get down on his hands and knees, take a look at that. It's not repairable. Emerson, you're out of here. Christian Fittipaldi leads, followed by Michael, and then Paul Tracy. We'll be back. Tonight here on ABC, it's an hour of America's Funniest Home Videos, followed by Lois and Clark. And then Lori Loughlin and Kay Jackson star in a story based on actual events. The unbelievable story of a baby stolen right out of the hospital. Empty cradle, tonight on ABC. Well, and Henry Ribeiro gets in trouble. Take a look at his right rear. Same thing Emerson did. Got it against the wall. Get off line, you've got big problems.
That's right. We got a good dry line, but you get out there just a hair on those slicks, and you're in trouble. Same spot, looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Here he comes. There he is.
Oh, he hit a little harder there. He hit a lot harder than Emerson, but same deal.
And speaking of Emerson Fittipaldi, as Ribeiro comes in, you'd have to assume that they've got some fairly serious suspension damage there.
I would think. He hit a lot harder than Emerson did. Emerson more brushed it, but
Christian Fittipaldi working his way now through traffic, comes around the Ganassi cars, and Michael Andretti still in pursuit, Jerry Punch.
That's right. As Michael makes his pursuit, we're with Emerson Fittipaldi. And Emerson, a tough break for you out there. You slapped it. It looked like a light hit, but it broke some suspension parts.
Well, it's a shame. The team did a fantastic pit stop, and turning to the corner, just lost the back end. I went a little too quick, too deep, and got on the wet part and just hit the wall. It's a shame.
We saw Andre Ribeiro do the same thing a moment ago in the same spot. He hit a lot harder. Is the track pretty wet? I mean, your own dry tires, is it hard to catch on, to hang on the turns?
No, the track is, the line is very dry. If you go a little wider, then you get a wet patch. But where I hit is wet. It's the only part of the track that's still damp and wet.
And Emerson Fittipaldi, a two-time winner of the Grand Prix here in Detroit, has to call it a day. Paul?
Well, console, I'm telling you, he isn't the only one got caught with that. You also saw Paul Tracy as he tried to hold off DeFerrin. He couldn't. Now he's trying to hold off Rahal and can't. So Bobby Rahal comes up into third place.
He looks like he's got a problem because he's sliding wide at a lot of corners there, and Paul's obviously having some kind of difficulty to drop 2 spots in a half a lap.
Now let me correct that. DeFerrin moved to third, Rahal moved to fourth, Tracy's down to fifth. Still Christian Fittipaldi and Michael Andretti at the front. Interval is 3 seconds between the first 2 cars. Penske teammates running together. A couple of years ago when Paul Tracy won here. Now part of the trip to the checkered flag involved touching the back of Little Al's car and sending him off into the tires.
Right at that corner where they are right now. He tapped him right there, and Little Al went straight.
It was a tense afternoon, to say the least.
I think so.
A sedate winner's circle.
Paul Tracy in the lead car there is obviously holding on, but
cars running pretty much equal, the 2 Penske machines.
it is, but it's unlike somebody like Paul Tracy running that far up to lose 2 spots in half a lap.
But once he fell back here into 5th place, seems like that's about where he's locked. Jerry Punch, do you have any idea why Tracy dropped back like that?
Well, Paul, we talked to Nigel Beresford, the engineer for Paul Tracy, and Chuck Sprague, who are standing here on the wall side by side. They're sort of mystified, too. Paul hasn't said anything on the radio as far as a problem with the car. They're watching the monitors. They saw him lose a couple of spots. Now the car is picked back up to speed and apparently is running okay, so they're not really sure what happened to Paul Tracy.
Well, I wonder if he just got got out there wide in one corner and got the tires damp, and he just couldn't hold on. You know, it's awful competitive up there at the front. Those guys just took advantage of it.
Looking down from the Honda Helicam, the continuing fight between Al Unser Jr. and Paul Tracy as they battle over 5th place. And you can see the crowd indeed did stay here. Got to give the race fan a lot of credit. It brings them turning back east along the pit straight. Paul Tracy has now been maintaining the lap time that he was earlier. So whatever it was transient and temporary.
But it sure cost him a couple of spots.
It did cost him 2 spots just right now. DeFerrin has stabilized in his position about 8 seconds back. There he is from Michael Andretti. You know, we had a meeting with some of the drivers yesterday. DeFerrin was saying a very interesting thing, coming from Formula One and with some rumor that he may in fact be going back. One of the reasons that drivers like Jackie Stewart, former world champion, is here looking at a new Formula One team. He's very, very tight with DeFerrin, but DeFerrin thinks that this series is more competitive than anything else in the world right now.
Well, you've got to have, when you have a series that you've got 22 cars covered by 1 second with some very good guys in there, and it's changing every week, it's got to be the most competitive. The problem if you go to Formula One, if you're not in one of the top teams over there, you stand very little chance of having any success.
Well, I certainly agree with the action on the Indy cars. Very, very competitive. DeFerrin, as he continues to work around. And let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, during that same meeting, this driver, Roberto Moreno, said, hey, guys, what do you do if you don't have a PR guy to tell you about your sponsored data control? I said, don't worry about it. If you do well, we'll talk about it. I didn't want to have to talk about it about you not doing well. What happened, Roberto?
Only you can make me smile now. Basically, we were running very well. We did a good strategy. Basically, we had to run on the wet, very careful, so we wouldn't go off. Some guys gave me a hard time to pass them, one of the Ganassi cars. I let one of the Goodyear guys go by, they were faster, and they gave him a hard time, and I followed it. So it worked very well. The dry came, we made a good change, and the car was very fast. Unfortunately, the exhaust pipe broke. The exhaust headers broke, and the car sort of got very hot. We had to give up for the day. But nevertheless, we'll be there next race.
He's had a podium finish already, guys. Let's check in with Dr. Jerry Punch.
Well, Andre Ribeiro's Honda-powered Lola back in the paddock area. Andre, what happened out there?
Well, I had an incident with Greg Moore, so we lost a couple of laps. Back to the track with new tires and dry tires. The car was quite positive, and I was having problem with the rear. So I finished touching the wall, and with damaged suspension, we had to stop.
Well, the winner from Rio, Paul, won't get number 2 here today.
Gilles DeFerrin, who started 7th, now runs in 3rd place. And looking back, there is Bobby Rahal chasing DeFerrin. Now looking for Paul Tracy and Al Unser Jr. There they are. And just a few moments ago, this was Paul Tracy.
Oh, see, he got up in that wet, and he just brushed that wall, but Paul's not going to slow down. He's lucky he hit it pretty flush. What you just hope is it didn't break a wheel or anything like that. But did you see him? He got over that damp and just slid him right up to the wall.
Being on the wet, as we're looking back now, is Paul Tracy closing in. Won't be a fight for position. It's from Jimmy Vasser's car, who is well down in the field right now.
That shows a real professional there. He's out of the hunt. He's not going to hold him up.
Jimmy Vasser is running 14th. That is out of the points. And remember, not so long ago, we were talking about how Al Unser Jr. is keeping track of those with Roger Penske. And what an advantage this is going to give Little Al as he closes from second in the points fight on Vassar. There's the drag race. And Little Al gets around him. Whoa, Little Al now.
Oh, Little Al right in the wall. It was too damp. Oh.
And so much for the points.
Oh.
As Little Al tried to get around, it was too damp. Almost took his teammate with him. And he's going to unbuckle and get out of the car. So, well, if Jimmy Vassar now moves up one position because of that, one more, he'll get a single point for 12th, Danny.
See, Paul was a little slow coming out of that corner. He got on that damp, locked up a wheel, got on the damp on the outside, and just slid out. There's a guy that is very frustrated. He knew he threw that one away.
Al Unser Jr. climbs up over the tire wall to get out of harm's way. They'll have to get his car out of the tire barrier, and I suspect that may mean a full course caution.
They'll have to go full course yellow on this one. It's in a bad spot. You can't just back it out. They couldn't put a tow truck out there and just pull it out. They'll have to go full course yellow.
Al Unser Jr. and Jimmy Vassar, the only two drivers to finish every race in the points this year. Well, that changes now for Little Al. Will Vassar be able to get into the points? So if they go full course, then that's going to work to some advantage as we are full course caution now. They're laid out for the leader, Christian Fittipaldi.
I think at this stage, Paul, you're going to have to see everybody pit, change for tires and fuel because they can get to the distance. It's under a yellow. They can get in and out.
Might as well. We're listening to Michael Andretti's radio now.
Copy, no changes.
So there's Michael Andretti as he chases Christian, his teammate, just ahead. Well, it's not really a chase since it's under yellow. Jerry Punch, here they come.
We're ready. We're ready.
Jack Harut?
Yeah, we're watching both Michael Andretti. You heard Lee White tell him that there were no changes.
Zero your fuel. Get your revs up.
Get your revs up. Meanwhile, Christian Fittipaldi, the work going there. No changes on his teammate, Christian Fittipaldi. He's away first. Fittipaldi goes down. Michael Andretti follows him.
Hey, watch your speed. Watch your speed, Mike.
And that's the most important point. Watch your speed. There is a speed limit, and pit road has dried up.
Well, it still looks a little damp, but it's dry there at the exit for sure.
Well, even if it is dry, those are cold tires. You don't want to come out of there too hot. 60-mile-an-hour speed limit in the pits, Jerry Punch.
Well, Joe DeFerrin just made a pit stop, changed 4 tires now. Paul Tracy farther down pit road. They're making an adjustment on the car. He has a severe understeer, complaining of understeer, and now Tracy puts it back in gear, spins the tires, and pulls the Marlboro Penske away.
So on the 40th lap, 77 laps the scheduled distance, 47th lap, they make a stop. Most of the cars in this field. We should come back to green shortly. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations. Still under the full course caution, the Formula One circuit will take to the streets of Montreal. It's the Grand Prix of Canada next Sunday afternoon. That's at 12:50 Eastern only on ESPN2. A lot of those Formula One drivers have come here to Belle Isle, Detroit to see what IndyCar racing is all about. We saw Jackie Stewart, former world champion. His son Paul is here. Johnny Herbert's here. Jacques Villeneuve came back to visit his old friends at IndyCar. So they're here taking a look at it. Maybe negotiating a little?
Well, I don't know. I don't think Jacques is, but, you know, I think they're just looking to see. They've got, of course, Montreal next weekend, and they want to see what it's all about while these guys are coming over here having great racing and a lot of fun.
There's Adrian Fernandez, who's up much further in the field at the starts, falling backwards, but then working his way forward. And here's what I wonder, Danny Sullivan. Timed races. We haven't seen one since a year ago at Miami, but with all of the yellows and with the rain, IndyCar does have a rule that they can invoke and will invoke that says it can be a 2-hour race. Seems like we're getting pretty close to that.
We are. We're going to come to that, I think, before we are the finish of the race.
Jack Arute, what do you think?
Well, Paul, The crews have not been informed by IndyCar that there's any change from the 77 laps, the advertised distance, but they have made the determination themselves, they being Newman Haas. They've radioed to their drivers, forget the laps, we're talking minutes. About 2 minutes ago, they radioed and said 38 minutes to go, 38 minutes to go. So for your lead team right now, they're thinking in terms of minutes. They're not going to wait for CART to come over and tell them whether it's going to be laps or time.
And Jack, either way, there's enough fuel.
Absolutely, and I think that might be kind of the strategy or the tactic as well. Get your driver to stop thinking about fuel. We got plenty on line, and let's not talk about laps. Let's talk about trying to keep out front for the time involved, because either way that it goes, we're looking just about the same amount of time, whether it's laps or minutes. Who cares right now, Danny, as a driver? You just want to be kept pumped up, don't you?
Well, you do, and I don't think that's going to be a concern whether it's 74, 75 laps or 77. Right now, they got enough fuel to go race, and they got it turned up. They just got to worry about who they're racing with. And don't forget, I don't think IndyCar's got to come tell them. It's 2 hours or 77 laps, whichever comes first.
You got a glimpse of Carl Haas. He is the owner of both Christian Fittipaldi and Michael Andretti, the first two cars, and bases his team just outside of Chicago, Illinois. When we come back, we think we'll have a green. Belle Isle in Detroit, the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix, a 2.1 mile, 14-turn temporary road circuit. Let's go back to 1994. Battle with the teammates. Al Unser Jr. leading Paul Tracy, as Tracy locks him up and punts him right in. Shades of what happened just a few moments ago, except no contact this time. Little Al did it all to himself.
Well, he did, but he was taking that opportunity that Paul presented him. I think Paul was a little slow coming out of that one corner. He got a chance to get along side. Unfortunately, it was damp.
So they line up with Christian Fittipaldi ahead of Michael Andretti on the circuit, and then Gil DeFerrin, Bobby Rahal, Paul Tracy, and the rest of the field, again under the new rule of putting the first 12 cars, which are the cars on the lead lap, at the front of the line. Ready to go green, and we're green again.
I'll tell you what, Christian Fittipaldi's made good restarts all day long. He's had some really strong restarts.
Tastes very well back to the line as Michael Andretti now tries to close on Christian Fittipaldi. Everybody should be able to go to the finish. As yet, we don't know officially whether or not that finish is 77 laps or 2 hours, but certainly the assumption is 2 hours, which would bring it in, what, about 19 past the hour, somewhere in there. The official word now, 19 minutes, 8 seconds.
Well, that's important, because if you cross that finish line at 19 minutes and those 8 seconds aren't there, you've got to do one more lap.
One more to go.
It does make a difference.
Back with Gil DeFerrin now. Bobby Rahal closing on him. That fight will be for third, fourth, fifth, sixth.
These two Newman Haas cars seem to have the measure of the field just at the moment. And that last car right there with the Firestone, the red, white, and blue one right behind Paul Tracy's red and white car right there on your screen. Scott Pruitt, I think, has done a great job today because he's hung in there. Didn't have the best tires at the start, but he's hung in there. And now he's battling for a strong position. Of course, he started on the pole position.
And still trying to work his way back. Jerry Punch?
Well, the search continues, Paul, for Al Unser Jr. The Team Penske guys have gone up to Chris Mears. Others have gone looking for him. They've checked the motorhome, the coach, the paddock, the garage area, a couple of concession stands, and they figure what's happened. Probably he's found the TV monitor to watch what should be a thrilling finish of this race, but they're still hunting him. Right now, no luck.
Yeah, I'll bet he probably grabbed a hot dog and went for a motor coach somewhere. You know, he drives to most of the tracks in his own coach. Loves that.
Yeah, I think that seems to be an Unser family tradition. Big Al did it. Bobby did it. They really enjoy their time. They tow around, have wave runners in the back, and they stop and go take the kids out to the lake. Really enjoy it.
More and more of the drivers do that. Scott Pruitt continuing to close now on Paul Tracy. Looks for the position on the inside. Nope.
That's a tough place to
really
pass a
can't do
fast
it,
car.
can you?
Paul Tracy up very high again, coming off that corner. He was in the wet, very close up against the wall.
Here comes Scott Pruitt again. And once it gets dry, those Firestones really come on the line again. And he lost a little too much on that corner. Now he's going to have to set him up again. Say a lot of the guys now. Parker Johnstone is one of them. A lot of the drivers are beginning to use those the coaches. And what it does is it lets them stay at the racetrack and kind of get away from all of the craziness of having to get in the crowd coming in the morning and fight the traffic. You can sit there with your cup of coffee and watch everybody else come in. Say, hi, guys. You have to get up at 4 to be here?
My wife, Brenda, and I did it last year, and it was very enjoyable. And it sure made a nice way, particularly the tracks at the hotels are a long way away. And when you're working late at night, Scott Pruitt stayed here on Friday night with his engineers till 9:30 trying to sort that car out for Saturday. Obviously paid off with his pole.
Paul Tracy trying to hold on with his Goodyears, under attack now by both Pruitt and Fernandez. Firestone. This was just a moment ago.
So he gets out there just in that damp right there, slides it up. Whoa! I'll tell you what, if he didn't touch it, I'd be surprised, but
gives you an idea, though, of how much pressure he is under from Scott Pruitt. That's a desperate drive now for Tracy, and it's not to catch a position, it's trying to keep away from Pruitt.
Well, not only that, but he hasn't had the strongest season. He'd like to get some more points.
Pruitt at this point, clearly the faster car. Between these two, let's watch them under braking here.
Yeah, but Paul, you can be faster, but if you can't get by that car in front, it doesn't count.
Well, even on a perfectly dry day.
That's right. I'll tell you, Scott's looking at every opportunity around this track, and that makes it tough on Paul because he can't just focus on trying to make the car go fast and catch up to Bobby Rahal in front of him. He's got to fend off all the challenges from Scott.
Battle for fifth. Paul Tracy, Scott Pruitt in the red, white, and blue car. Adrian Fernandez, green and white, just behind them, Jerry Punch.
Just talked with Chuck Sprague, the team manager for Paul Tracy, who told me that Paul had complained that the car had a serious push and understeer during that last pit stop. They made a wing adjustment, and Paul said, you fixed the wing and you fixed the push, but I don't think I've got enough to hold off Pruitt. He is really hooked up.
Well, those Firestones are coming into play. That tire battle has added just a whole nother dimension to IndyCar racing in the past year.
For everybody at home, that push and that understeer means that the front end's not turning the way that he wants to. It's just not got as much groove. We got a report from Jack.
Yeah, Danny, as the temperature begins to go up here, one of the things that the Firestone engineers said earlier in the day is they needed temperatures above 70 degrees to repeat the performance that they did in qualifying. I don't know what the outside temperature is right now, but it's getting awfully close.
Oh, you ought to see Scott Pruitt as he tried to get inside Tracy. Tracy shut it down on him.
Boy, that was a tricky place to pass, but it looked like Paul had trouble coming out of that corner. Scott jumped in there. Paul wasn't having any of it.
Yeah, and Scott didn't lose all that much with that maneuver. The front, it's still the Newman Haas teammates, Fittipaldi and Andretti, followed by DeFerrin in Detroit. Belle Isle in Detroit for the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix on a day that started with just pouring rain and dried here. And now we are watching some good fights. DeFerrin in third, trying to hold off Rahal. And the sky has brightened a bit. In fact, it was a little brighter just seconds ago. But obviously that cloud layer is going up a little bit, and rain is no longer a threat whatsoever in a race that will end as a timed race at about 19 minutes, well, precisely at 19 minutes and 8 seconds after the hour. The checker will come out. Christian Fittipaldi is the leader. He has been most of the run after he was able to come up through the field and get around the pole sitter, who was Scott Pruitt. And it was an interesting battle between the tire companies and has been throughout the day. Firestone was not as prepared as they could have been for a battle in the rain. They responded to that, though. grooved their own tires, added grooves to their existing rain tires. But then as the track has dried, once again the Firestone tires look very strong. But for the moment, Goodyear is holding the top 2 positions. So that's been fun to watch as well.
You see Scott Pruitt's dropped back just a little bit there. He's sliding the car around a little bit more. Paul Tracy seems to have stretched out a little bit of a cushion. There's some good battles going through here, and Adrian Fernandez is right behind him, hanging on to that battle.
This is an ongoing fight for 5th place. Then you got that fight between DeFerrin and Rahal just ahead of them for 3rd place. Now we're going to look back. Here comes Blundell. Jerry Punch.
You know, you got to give a call to Mark Blundell. He was injured in a horrific 197-mile-an-hour crash back on March 17th at Rio. He fractured 3 bones in his right foot. This is the first time he's been on a road course. And remember, when you do brake with your right foot, I talked to him before the race. He said, "Doc, this is very, very uncomfortable. It's downright painful to be able to brake with my right foot, but that's the side of my foot where the bones are still broken." He said, "I'm going to try to survive 77 laps, and if I can finish, it'll be somewhat of a miracle." And folks, he has done a tremendous job, currently showing in the top 10. I think Paul at 8th spot.
And so the rain helped out there. It won't be quite 77 laps. Mark Blundell, I'll tell you what. Well, another car, and it looks like Rahal. It is Rahal into the barrier. Well, he was running in 4th place and was trying to catch DeFerrin, and maybe he tried just a little too hard.
Of course, that's that spot there too, Paul, where there's that little moisture still on the track, a little added there from the tires. I'm imagining if Bobby's been in there twice, they're going to have to go full course yellow for this. And I owe him a little apology. Last week I said that he had 3 children. Actually, I made a mistake. He has 4 children.
Exactly. Well, Rahal, can he get that car going again? It looks like it was only glancing. If it didn't do too much in terms of bending or rearranging the left front, we go to the full course yellow once again. Pits will be open. Shouldn't be a reason for anybody to head in the pits. I'm wondering about the suspension arms on the left front.
Well, let's look here. He gets off there a little high. Oh, before he got a little wide. Probably got some. He's clapping his hands. He wants him to push him back like nothing's wrong, but I'm not so sure he wouldn't have torn up the nose. You hit those tires.
Oh, look at the tire. Look at the wheels in the front.
Left front wheel is pointing way out there, right there under the safety crew.
So with the full course yellow once again.
There's Bobby will realize
Rahal unstrapped. They'll get that situation resolved.
Stay out. Thank God.
I was just trying to get a rise out of you guys. It's been too quiet for me.
So Michael Andretti's sense of humor.
Talk about this later.
Lee White talking to Michael Andretti. So under the full course caution, they will get the field back together once again, and they'll all be strung together. So theoretically, it will be a sprint now with just a few minutes remaining. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations. Yellow flags still fly all around this circuit here. Next stop for the Indy cars in the PPG IndyCar World Series 2 weeks from today. It's a new venue for ABC Sports. That will be the Budweiser 200 from Portland. We've seen some great races for the Indy cars there. We expect the same in 2 weeks. So full course caution and everybody bunched up once again. The leaders still staying in contact all the way down through 11th place. P.J. Jones is the end of the lead lap, and we'll look for the eagle nose on that car. There it is. Beautiful, beautiful paint job on those machines. And let's go to Jerry Punch.
Well, Paul, Tim Cindric is a team manager for Bobby Rahal. And Tim, we had reports from observers that something may have broken on the car. Any comment or any reactions from Bobby?
Bobby's reaction was just simply that we were in the wall. So I'm not sure if anything actually did break. Just watching it on the replay, it looked like maybe we hit a curb prior to going into the fence, which actually pushed the car into the fence itself.
This run today had to be a huge morale boost for the team, considering the problems you struggled through the last few months.
Sure, we've done a lot of work between Long Beach and now to try and put the Miller car up front and try and get our team back where it should be in the standings in the points championship as well as at each venue. So I think we made a lot of progress. We had a fast car all weekend. It's unfortunate what happened toward the end of the race today.
This would have been their second top 5 finish of the year. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Jerry, normally the crews stand it ready like this, maybe 1 foot on the wall. When Michael Andretti radioed in, I'm coming in, these guys did a high jump of about 14 feet. We could take them to the Olympics. Lee White was the first one on the radio. He's talking to Michael right now. We'll catch him as he's done because they can only talk to Michael on the front side of the course because of the length of this course. So we're going to see, Lee, you had to straighten Michael out right quick. You said, we'll talk about it later. That really surprised you, didn't it, that him coming in, that he wanted to come in? You were really surprised.
Mike was messing with us a little bit there. He thought he'd been real quiet because we're having some radio problems, and he just thought he'd wake the guys up, and it worked.
Well, I'll tell you what, as we said, these guys jumped about 14 feet. They all ought to be on Team USA in Atlanta.
I'll tell you what, I've had the very same feeling from time to time as we look down from the Honda Helicam, yellows all the way around the circuit. You know, a lot of people have had to fight the elements the past couple of days here in Detroit. The IndyCar teams and the rest of the series that are racing here, but also the television technical crew. Sometimes we assume that all of these great pictures and the good audio just comes streaming out of your TV set, and I got to tell you, it takes legions of people to get that all set in. And in this particular case, they did it in the rain, and then when it continued raining, they started all the broadcasts today in the rain. And believe me, these things don't operate real well in the rain. So you're looking now at the current running order, and we should see the green flag as they come to the start-finish this time. With just a few more minutes, though, as yet we've had no official word that this is a timed race. We're still waiting for that. Though logic says that it has to be with 64 laps complete. And keep an eye on the Newman-Haas team at the front. In fact, keep an eye on all those guys at the front. They know that this is the last chance to really make a move. This restart, Christian Fittipaldi's had some great restarts, 2 of them so far today. Really knows how to bring them back. Already he's under power. Up through the gears. Michael stayed with him this time. In fact, Michael stuck right with him. DeFerrin anticipated that as well. All of the leaders running right together through the first corners now. Michael and Christian begin to pull away.
I think everybody had seen that restart too many times today. They weren't going to be caught.
Oh, Michael comes to the inside. Michael goes for the lead, and Michael comes around, takes the lead from Christian. Little mistake cost Christian dearly there. Now DeFerrin's lining up on Christian Fittipaldi.
He got out there just wide again, and he couldn't turn the car.
Now Scott Pruitt as he comes charging up through the field now as Scott Pruitt moves ahead. There's DeFerrin, and there is the reason that Pruitt is forward. It's Paul Tracy, and he's off the edge of the course. So Tracy, who was running in 4th, suddenly veers off course, and the second Penske car is in trouble.
And again, he's signaling, try to get him back. He doesn't think his car's damaged. He doesn't want to lose that spot. That's on the corner leading onto the straightaway.
Yeah, but I don't think there's enough time to make a difference now, as they've just announced that in about 9 minutes this race will end. And no, they go full course yellow, so maybe Tracy still has a chance. So we thought what was going to be a sprint to the finish. Paul Tracy gets in a battle with Scott Pruitt, gets off the edge of the circuit. Tracy's into the tire barrier and will full course yellow again. Well, the corner workers got Paul Tracy push started, and so we're back to green flag. The green just came out. Michael Andretti, of course, leading his teammate. There's where that mistake happened. 1 lap before the yellow, and Danny, what happened was it looked like he just got offline. Is that it?
It looked like he just got offline, went a little bit wide. Michael took advantage of it, slipped right up underneath him. There wasn't anything that Christian could do about it.
Sun shining here now. You saw Michael, though, hit 2 puddles, so it's still damp in some places. Jerry Punch.
Just talked a moment ago with Nigel Beresford, who's the engineer for Paul Tracy. He says Paul told him that he got a little bit of an assist, got a little push from behind by Pruitt. That's the reason his car ended up over in the tire barrier.
All right, well, we'll take a look at Scott Pruitt's car, make sure there's no damage there. Interesting report. We had confirmation of that from some of the spotters on the circuit. Jack Arute?
Well, let's update you on Bobby Rahal's problem. Wasn't as big a mechanical as it was you got in the paint.
Yeah, just going into that corner, the white stripe, there's no grip on it, and I just got my left front wheel onto it, trying to, maximize my speed, and it locked the left front brake up, and when I went to try to turn into the corner, it didn't turn, and I just got out wide in the wet stuff, and boom, off a win. So entirely my fault.
The Miller team will be at Portland, though, Paul, and look for this guy. He's still looking for a podium.
Whoa! Pruitt was chasing DeFerrin for third place, and Pruitt loses it, and I'll bet that means full course caution again.
It's got to. That's right at the spot where Little Al went off. It looked like he came in there hot, trying to gain a little bit on DeFerrin, hit the brakes, locked him up, and spun around.
Scott Pruitt, car looks to be okay, but again, we'll go, no doubt, to full course caution, though they haven't done that yet. We look down to see the starter stand position, and now we go full course caution. So with the time running out, we're sitting about 5 minutes away from the end of this run, which is scheduled as a 2-hour run now, and not the full distance scheduled of 77 laps. So Michael Andretti and Christian Fittipaldi will have to battle again through a restart. And the EDS scoring people supplying the computer feeds to all the teams, they have been very busy today trying to keep all of the order updated in the interval. There's Pruitt as he lost it behind DeFerrin.
And he just looks like he came in there too hot and tried to move the car around, got the back end wiggling a little bit, and lost it under braking.
Counting down now with 4 minutes remaining in the run. Looks like they may get back for just a single lap of racing.
Well, they should get that car out of the way pretty quick. It was just kind of slid in backwards. They should be able to turn it around and go. The barriers, I don't think. They just threw the fencing up. I think it'll be a quick cleanup.
They got Scott Pruitt refired and rolled away from the area. They're hustling back to the different safety positions now. There's Scott Pruitt as he tries to catch up with the group. So obviously his car, at least at these speeds, is okay. And we will assume that he wouldn't drive it if it weren't ready to run at racing speeds when they come back. So we'll see the green flag this time by. And keep an eye on the front of that field. Michael Andretti, Christian Fittipaldi, Adrian Fernandez, all right together. Coming up on 3 minutes now. 3 minutes to the checkered flag. And the first 9 cars are all on the leader lap, all the way back to P.J. Jones, who may be bringing Toyota their first top 10 finish. Boy, what's going through these guys' mind? Danny, what would you do if you were sitting in second?
Well, I've got to think of the same thing as Michael. I've got to have a great restart. I've got to stay right there, as close up underneath that gearbox as I can, and try to find a way by him and hope I can force him to make a mistake or leave the door open, because I know right now if I'm Christian Fittipaldi, I don't have much chance and very few opportunities between now and the end of this race.
All right, just a tick over 2 minutes to go now to the checkered flag. Michael Andretti, I'm sure he's thinking about what Christian's going to do. Christian's trying to make the move that will help him. DeFerrin's right there. Pace picks up. Here we go again. The final laps.
That's not the restart I wanted.
Down. No, not at all. Boy, Michael really got the jump on him, and they spread out on that restart. Michael Andretti pulling away now. Coming down a minute and a half to the end of the run. So next time by, it'll be the white flag, and they'll start the final lap of the run.
Boy, he's
Michael
really
Andretti pulling away. 1 minute to the checkered flag. Looking for the checker to come out now as Michael Andretti, 2 in a row on the oval, the mile at Milwaukee, and now with a move that jumps him around his teammate here in the closing laps, he picks up the lead. Christian Fittipaldi, who had been dominant and powerful throughout the day, and Michael Andretti circling Belle Isle and looking for a checkered flag.
I've got a feeling he might have to go one more lap.
L1.
1 lap to go.
1 to go. You heard Lee White tell him. So the race time will run out in about 30 seconds now. They've already given Michael the white flag showing him just 1 lap to go. So it'll be checkered next time around. And Michael Andretti, if his teammate can't catch him, will see back-to-back wins. The same for Lola, for Ford Cosworth, and for Goodyear. But boy, I tell you what, he's still pushing that car pretty heavy.
He was sliding it around there really strong for the last lap, having that cushion he's got. A little bit more cautious out there on the straight.
Well, Michael Andretti on his final circuit here at Belle Isle at the ITT Automotive Detroit Grand Prix. We're listening to his radio as he runs for the checkered flag. Doesn't seem like Christian Fittipaldi can do much about catching Michael Andretti. Well, look at how he's pulled away. In fact, Christian now under a bit of attack by Gil de Ferran. That crackling sound, that is the radios. As we listen in, now de Ferran pulls back off of Fittipaldi, and here Michael takes the final tight turn for home. And the checkered flag lies just ahead. And Michael Andretti scores.
It just cost me $1,000, though.
Scores race win 33 in his IndyCar career. We'll have to find out what the $1,000 was all about. As Michael Andretti takes the win, Christian Fittipaldi second, followed by de Ferran, Fernandez, Mark Blundell, Eddie Lawson, Stefan Johansson. Raul Boesel is 8th. In 9th, P.J. Jones, and Scott Pruitt, the pole sitter, finishes in 10th. So the points tighten up even more. Andretti has taken the win. Newman Haas 1-2 as we take a look at the unofficial results here. Some excellent performances here today. Stefan Johansson started in 22nd, finished in 7th. Eddie Lawson, 23rd, moved up into 6th place. And we mentioned P.J. Jones with a nice effort, comes into the top 10, first time ever for Toyota. So there is the order. And Jimmy Vasser managed to get into the points, the single point for 12th position, while Al Unser Jr. Goes away with no points whatsoever. An interesting day, started in rain and ends up with Newman Haas finishing 1-2 and Michael Andretti scoring 2 in a row. So there is the order. Michel Jourdain, of course, did not take the flag. Jack Arute?
And the first thing the crew said to Michael is 400,000 comedians out of work. You had to make us really fret about that one. First, tell me about that pass on your teammate.
I really felt bad for him. I mean, he did a great job the whole race, and he just got a little wide in one corner. I had to try to get him, and I was lucky enough to get him. But he did a great job, and he really deserved to win the race.
A good run by Newman Haas. Let's check in with the other teammate. He's with Jerry Punch.
Christian Fittipaldi shaking hands with Paul Newman. Christian, great effort for you. What happened on that next to the last restart when your partner got by you?
Well, I just braked a little bit too late, and the car went sideways, and I couldn't hold Michael. There was a little bit of difference in the car. I had wet setup in the car. My car was running a little bit higher, and it had a little bit less camber. So when it went dry, it was harder for me in the race than when it was wet. And when it was wet, I was dominating like the race. Like the guys gave me a fantastic car. Like I think that most of the effort I really owe to the team. But still, it was a good finish. At least we scored 1-2, and the championship's still wide open.
All right, gallant effort by the young Brazilian, Paul.
Well, a nice job by Christian Fittipaldi. Michael's right. He certainly deserved to win, but of course that's not the way it plays out when you have an error like that. Jimmy Vasser picks up at 1 point, is still the points leader, Al Unser Jr. But boy, look at the rest of the points as they close in. And in the manufacturers battle right now, as we're keeping track of all of the different battles here. Manufacturers point, Ford 1 point ahead of Honda. Let's go to Jack Arute.
We're looking straight into the camera. Gil de Ferran, tell us about that run.
Yeah, I'm very happy about that. I was, well, happy and not so happy. It was just not fast enough to catch the first two, but still, I hope this is the beginning of a comeback in the championship.
Well, that's the most important thing at this point in time. The race for the championship. Everybody looking for valuable points.
Very definitely what everybody's thinking about as they look now toward the end of the season. And Sully Star?
P.J. Jones, second Indy start, 25th to 9th, lead lap. And it was a new car and that new development Toyota engine. I think he did a fabulous job today.
Well, it started with a downpour and it's going to end in the sunshine. And the sun has shone on Michael Andretti 2 in a row. We'll see you in 2 weeks at Portland.